All right, one of the things I was alluding to is that one of the topics I'm addressing is venture capitalism. Does it have an impact to innovation? Looking back at those companies, keep them in mind throughout the whole process. And I don't know why this isn't working. All right. I found a really nice quote that if Schumpeter's view of the firm is a story, the entrepreneur would be the hero of capitalism. Capital provides a hero with the means of fostering his business activity. The means of enlarging his empowerment, and ultimately is a means of fighting the economic arena. That's the basis of where I'm going. If you do not believe that the entrepreneur is the innovator, then this story's over. However, if you do believe, I believe that venture capitalism is a necessary tool to fund that innovation. George Thoreau, viewed as the father of venture capitalism. Another really nice quote, and the reason why it's a long quote, but I do want to say it. When you have a child, or in this case an entrepreneur, you don't ask what return you can expect. Of course you have hopes. You have hopes that child becomes the President of the United States. But that is not very probable. I want them to be outstandingly well in their field, and if they do, the reward will come. But if the man is good and loyal and does not achieve a so-called good rate of return, I will stay with them. Some people do not become geniuses until after they are 24. Yeah, spectacular. In my definition of the world constructive, I'm building men and companies. This is the foundation of what George Thoreau thought of venture capitalism. It takes time and it takes knowledge to nurture that entrepreneur to be successful. This is not going.
You can just use the arrows.
I think I'll do that next time. One aspect of human capital of interest and experience. I'm going to talk about the human capital part of venture capital. One of the things that the venture capitalist brings to the table is knowledge, resources, contacts, the social means necessary to get that entrepreneur going. For instance, they know customers, they know people, they know the ins and outs. A good example is Gateway Experience. Gateway went with the venture capitalist firm a little bit on the second wave, not the initial, but the second tier of it. And they found it extremely helpful in guiding some of the management decisions, specifically doing checks on some of the executives that were hired and providing a list of executives to hire. Apple Computer, back in 1977, Donald Valentine was approached by Breakout, the Atari game designer Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs came to Valentine and he said, "I need some money." Valentine wasn't ready at that time to give him money to develop the microprocessor, but he was able to give him a little insight. He said, "You need some marketing executives. You need some help." So he gave him a list of names, and he came out with A.C. Marcola. So that proved at that point to be a necessary part of venture capital. Even though he didn't invest dollars, it was still helpful in Steve Jobs getting the ground up. Later on, he did invest money, but that's a different story. And then one aspect of the venture capitalism is that if they have a long time to go, then what they'll do is they will be on the board of directors of the entrepreneur. They will make sure, the one thing they'll make sure is that the management, the executive level, does not steer away from the original entrepreneur's idea, his vision. A lot of times when companies get created, they go off in all sorts of directions. One of the things that the board is there to do, and specifically the venture capitalist is there to do, is to make sure that you don't go swaying off in different directions. There's been a few analysis, a few empirical works done regarding the impact of venture capitalists on the board, and they shown that there's a high return when there's a high return on the IPO for a venture-backed firm. Okay, now we get back to the money. Going back to Thoreau, a commercial bank lends only on the strength of the past. and I want money to do things that I have never been able to do before. One of the ways, another powerful tool that the venture capitalist does, he staggers his funds. What he does is he says, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit now, I'm going to give you a little later, you're going to prove to me what you're doing, we're going to make sure we're on the same path, if not, I'm going to back out, but then we're going to keep going. Great example, another example is Apple. $518,000 at 9 cents a share back in 1977. Later that same year, they proved that they're doing pretty well, and so they got a little bit more money for 28 cents a share. And then the next year, $2.3 million for 97 cents a share. As you can see, that's a lot of shares and adds up, and they went public in 1980, and that venture capitalist firm did make a lot of money. There are funding stages to venture capitalists. I apologize for the graph, but we have, right here we have the seed, if you will. The idea is just getting going, and then we have the startup, which has been going for a little bit, and then we have the early growth, and then we have the sustained expansion. Right here, you have trade credit, which is the only essential capital that a new startup firm has, is going to the supplier and saying, I need some money, can you help me out? Or I'm going to buy your goods, can you give me a little bit of discount? There's a big gap there with the initial startup firm. But once they get going at the startup stage, venture capitalist plays a major role and fills that gap up, nurtures that company, and tries to make it successful. The banks are towards the back, and they tend to be a little bit risk adverse. They don't want to invest in the risky assets of the entrepreneur, so they tend to stay away. If you're an entrepreneur, venture capital is one of the best and often the only means of financing capital-hungry small firms that is not yet in a position to secure capital via public underwriting. This graph was by Hubin.